So in this podcast, we are going to talk about Hitmonkey. We're going to talk about other news. Going to talk about, is Kitty Pryde really worth 6,000 tokens? Meta deck tier list, so you know which decks are the best to play. And also buffs and nerfs, what we really want to see. Those changes that would make the game a little bit better, in our opinion. And also, we're going to talk about the Infinity Gauntlet tournament, which was really exciting for some participants. A brief overview of that. Welcome to the first episode of the Dekkster and Dera podcast. We're just going to be talking about Marvel Snap. People been clamoring for this podcast, so we thought
they really have. Yeah, this has been I literally have had 10 different DMs that are like, hey, we should start a pod, or everyone in chat is like, hey, when's the podcast? And now when you reached out, and by reached out I mean I was in your Twitch chat, you're like, we should do a pod. There, you have a podcast? And I was like, let's do it. And here we are.
Yeah, I was kind of teasing it. I was hoping people would forget about it, but they kept reminding me that I had to do it. So here we are. Finally making it happen. Yeah.
We were forced to do it.
So first of all, how you doing, Dara?
I'm doing well. I think Snap has had enough of a shakeup that I'm feeling okay about the game-ish. It was like, for that short time in the past when we were in that Thanos heavy meta, it was like, do I want to play Snap today kind of thing? But what? After this shakeup, it's been pretty good, but there are things I'm looking forward to keep it more fresh,
And what shakeup are you referring to?
Future shakeup. Hitmonkey coming out in a couple days, I think will be a pretty big shakeup to the meta, because I think that's gonna really drive home an archetype that was really popular in the beta and maybe a little bit after, but it's gonna bring back those more zoo-ish decks, the decks with a lot of cards you're playing out. I feel like they're becoming more popular after the Thanos meta, but this is now a whole new world with Hitmonkey, because I think this card might be the most busted card since Zabu, you know what I'm saying, in the season pass.
So Hitmonkey's going to be the new season pass card, right? And if you buy the season pass, you get Hitmonkey, where he's a 2/0, and his on reveal is gain +2 power for each other card you've played this turn. And bounce decks are actually quite strong right now, so it's looking like Hitmonkey's going to make them even stronger. A really fun card.
Really fun card. And one quick call out here is you can play Mysterio with this card, which is 3 cards played out at once. So if you just play Mysterio and Hitmonkey, that's already a 2/6 card. That's like the old Hell Cow back in beta. It was a 2/6. They had to nerf that to a 4/6 because that's busted. So this card feels really, really, really strong.
Yeah, I'm worried it might be a little bit busted. Definitely kind of on that Zabu level. Maybe they'll have to address him relatively quickly, but yeah, it's gonna be fun until it isn't, because everyone's complaining about it.
That's the double-edged sword, I feel of new cards that are good. It's fun because it's it's very playable. You can put in a lot of different stuff. You can try it out, but then at the same time, it might become too dominant in some ways and feel too oppressive of a card. So that was definitely the Zabu meta, right? When Zabu came out, it was everything was Zabu. Zabu was in every deck. You just put in 2 4-drops sometimes, and you're like, oh, that's a Zabu deck. It's just is Hitmonkey gonna be the same? You run anything with low-cost cards at all, and you're like, oh, I might as well put Hitmonkey in this,
Yeah. Exactly. Almost ends up being a 2-card combo. You just put Mysterio and Hitmonkey in any deck, and it becomes better. Kind of like Arrow and She-Hulk or something like that of days past.
Yep. Yeah. She-Hulk still every deck, but yeah.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good card. Probably an S-tier card. One of the best.
Sure,
maybe people, you kind of might need to buy this battle pass if you want to stay competitive in the meta. Of course, we don't know yet. Somehow this might flop, but I wouldn't expect that. And you know what? I feel like Second Dinner really can't win. If they release a really good card like Silver Surfer or Zabu, everyone's complaining that it's pay to win. But if they release a card that's not as strong, maybe MODOK or Nimrod, everyone's like, oh, this is stupid. They need to release better cards. They just can't win. So this is going to come out. Everyone's going to complain that the game is pay to win, and it's a never-ending cycle.
It is. But luckily, I feel like they have the option of choosing which card goes into the season pass, where versus the 6,000 token cards that get released each month. And the season pass is kind of a bit cheaper, even though it's like kind of like forced to pay $10 versus like technically you get like 6,000 tokens over the course of a season that you could get one free card. So like one is like forced to pay $10, but one's forced to pay 6,000. But if you want to get multiple of those 6,000 cards, it starts to become very expensive, like $200 expensive. You know, it's just like, and I would rather pay $10 honestly for a card that I know is going to be good rather than having to be like, "Ugh, should I? I did this with Kitty Pryde actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think people would be more happy to spend $10 on a good card than have to spend 6,000 tokens. So I guess we should be happy this is gonna be a battle pass card instead of like a week 2 card where you have to spend 6,000 and some people just don't have 6,000 tokens and yeah. So that's a good way of looking at it. Like Shuri being 6,000 tokens and not a lot of people could get her, and now she's cheaper. But back in the day, she was insane. Back in the day.
Yeah, one of my new favorite cards, like to put in decks, like Master Mold actually, like is 6,000 tokens, and I know almost no one who has that card, and it's like frustrating to me. Be like on Twitter, I'll be like posting deck like suggestions for people like with that they say I'm like, oh, actually Master Mold plus Ronin kind of cool in this like kind of deck, and they're like, oh, don't have Master Mold. It's just like it sucks because it's like that's like a good-ish card. It's not like a must-have, so it's just like. It sucks for any of those that get dropped in that 6,000 bucket.
Yeah, my experience with Mold has been quite a bit different than yours, it seems like. But,
wait, do you have Mold?
I do have Mold. I tried them like one day maybe, and I couldn't get them to do too hot.
You know, you gotta find the right package. I think the Darkhawk package with him is kind of busted right now. It's just the Darkhawk package in general is just really good. So you get Ronin plus Darkhawk. But I also had another pretty good stuff list with Master Mold.
Yeah.
Playing them out seems good.
I'll have to try your take on it. But yeah, anytime I put in an exciting new card that's 6,000 collector's tokens, most people don't have access to it. Maybe like 5% or less of people actually pick up that card.
Yeah, I would think less. It's just like,
I just end up getting a lot of flack for it. People are like, oh, I'll be able to play this in 3 years, you know, and it kind of, it disincentivizes me. Is that a word? I think that's a word, to play the card. So I'm like, okay, I just won't pick up the new card. Like I didn't buy Negasonic because I knew if I made a video on it, people would just be like, oh, I can't play this, you know, make a video on a different deck.
Yeah. Negasonic is a harder card to justify, I feel like, to pick up because it's like strictly like a tech card that you just throw into some decks that are already created just to like try and like play around a few extra situations. So it's not really like even that interesting, but it is like a very unique card that I picked up. And then I also picked up Kitty Pryde, which did you pick up Kitty Pryde?
I did. I bought Kitty Pryde, but I have not played a single game with Kitty Pryde.
Oh wow!
Do you know?
Bought it, but
do you know why?
Disabled.
Yeah.
Before.
So I bought it. I think because I wanted to buy it before the shop like reset. So maybe I got a variant with Kitty Pryde, which I did end up getting. But then she kind of broken, right?
Yeah, just a bit. There's like a few things that are like straight up broken with her, like just from in the game when you're playing, like. Collector doesn't go off properly, Beast doesn't discount her properly as they want her to. But there are also other things that they said were intended, which is like when you pick her back up after you wave, she still costs 1. Like, and those sort of interactions, they said they still want to have happening. Like, that's not a bug they've said. But then there's the overall awful bug that actually like causes your game to crash and you can't get back in. Some people were locked out for like 45 minutes. Actually, not great.
Do you know what caused that bug? I didn't actually get to witness it.
There is. I don't know if there's like a set thing that causes that bug. I played a decent amount of Kitty Pryde. I never had a game crashing bug with it, but a lot of other people were having game crashing bugs that were like locking them out of the game. So
yeah, that's
not
that's
great
annoying.
For a release. This is the second card that has had some major game crashing releases, the other one being Kang. So it's like a huge thing that there was huge pushback by like the community around like, is Second Dinner even queuing their game, you know? But
I feel like people
what are your
say that
thoughts on
about
this?
every game. People say that like,
They
oh,
do,
do
they
they
do.
even test this? But it's like the amount of testing they do, they could spend weeks testing it, but it's
Yeah.
not going to be able to compete with the amount of testing that, they just make it go live. And within 1 hour, we've done way more than they've been able to try in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
people
exactly.
don't account for that.
It is the testing, but also supposedly with this round with Kitty Pryde and the testing, they had tested all of these things that we say are wrong, like, and they were working. And then some change gets made in development, like last minute, that they aren't expecting to affect Kitty Pryde in any way, and it did. So it's just like they didn't go back through and test everything after they made some other small change. They might have been like testing like a future card that's in the game that's coming out like next week, like Hitmonkey or something, and some change to that ended up affecting Kitty Pryde, and it's just like, it sucks that it just like, it breaks the game. But it's like, it's not like they're not doing any QA at all. They had all the interactions probably working at some point, right? Like they're not going to be like, oh, Beast doesn't, like Collector doesn't go off. It's like, they obviously played a game with Collector and Kitty Pryde. That's like a very common combo. It's in their actual release video for Kitty Pryde working. It's like, so, it's one of those things that like, it just sucks, and that's a development process kind of thing that sucks.
Yeah, I think it is really cool that they were able to disable the card. I think it sucks for everyone that got it. I think they said we're going to be compensated somehow, but the fact that they were able to disable the card was something I didn't realize they had the ability to do.
Didn't realize that either. Without a patch, well, unless there was a small patch last week. I'm not sure if that was like them being like, quickly, let's put this thing in for Kitty Pryde, but
I don't think it was that. I think they implemented a way so they can do patches without actually patching the game. I don't know if it's like server side or something. I took one day of a Python class, so I'm an expert, But,
yeah. So they did say the server side stuff is very specific things they can do server side. Like they call them like over the air patches, meaning you don't have to get an update in your app store. But the over the air patches, like they've said that they can do some like balance tweaking and some other things, like the balance tweaking being like they can change power levels and energy levels of cards without a patch. But I don't know, they can't change like the how the actual mechanics of a card work and without a patch.
Oh, but maybe they can disable it. I don't know.
But yeah, I think there might be like a little toggle that they can turn on and off that's like this card's enabled or disabled.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was cool. It's better than it being broken and left in the game until they're able to push a patch, because I think they have to go to like the Apple store. They have to like go through that or something. I don't know how it works, but
yeah, there's like a 2-week process of like submitting approvals for like the Apple store and Google Play and stuff like that. So it's just like to do any sort of major patch, it takes a bit of time for sure.
Yeah,
like you don't want to do that.
Okay, so Hitmonkey, I think this is going to be one of the strongest cards. I think this battle pass is going to be worth picking up if you are willing to invest. What is it? $10, $9.99, less than $10. Then
less than $10.
You can get yourself an S tier card. Yeah, but what do you think? Do you think Kitty is worth the 6K tokens?
I do. I unlike you got to play it for a day before they disabled it. So I think Kitty is a lot of fun and definitely worth it. It feels really strong too. Like you wouldn't think it's that strong because it's really like you're paying like 1 cost for 2 power each time you play her out. So it's like you're not getting like crazy value, right? Like you play her 4 times, that's like a 4/8. But it's just the fact that it's like she's so flexible and like you can move her. Like it's basically like a Nightcrawler and like multiple Nightcrawlers in one. It's like you can play a Nightcrawler every turn, so you can basically move it and you can just stack up power for the end of the game to then put it in the lane that you want. So it's just like by the end of the game, a lot of times Kitty's like 8 power and you're just like able to put it down wherever you want, wherever you need it, So it's just really strong. And it combos with like the other cards, Angela Bishop, those kind of things. So you're buffing other cards at the same time every time you're playing it out.
Yeah. Might go in a Hitmonkey deck.
Hitmonkey coming.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So Hitmonkey, it's just going to add that extra synergy to a Hitmonkey deck. Exactly. Like it's another card that you're playing out maybe with the Hitmonkey on that turn. It's a 1-drop. Mysterio. Like you might just have a big dump last turn hand, which you know what happens with big dump last turn hands? What becomes meta? Our favorite card, Leech. It might come back. Who knows?
Leech or the Sandman?
Oh, Sandman, I think is going to be straight up meta with the release of Hitmonkey because of both Kitty Pryde and Hitmonkey coming out so closely together. Like Kitty Pryde, obviously 6,000 tokens, but Hitmonkey Season Pass, Sandman will be everywhere, I think.
Or even just a wave on 5 might be decent. My cat just changed.
Wave on 5 will be decent. I think a lot of the Hitmonkey decks are going to run Sarah, actually, since it's a 2 cost. So that means Sarah can discount it. Sarah discounts Mysterio. Sarah discounts Angela. I think Sarah might become meta. So wave with Sarah means you could still play 2 cards, but then Hitmonkey's not really worth it. But yeah.
Maybe Shadow King? Okay, I'm reaching. All right, Shadow King's just bad.
That's copium if I've ever heard copium. Yeah, no. You say that, but it's just like, it would really reset like Angela, Bishop, and Hitmonkey, right? All 3 of those cards get set to like, that's 1 power total between the 3 of them if they're on the same lane. So, but Shadow King was like a 2 or a 3 cost unit.
Yeah. He needs to be addressed a little bit. So we wanted to talk about a meta tier list, and we kind of want to go over this every week and kind of just update it. We do have access to untapped.gg premium stats, so we'll show those on the screen. And we do. If you're not watching, we'll talk about them.
Basically give you a little insight into what the data says, but also what we think it should be necessarily based on like the different metas that we're playing in and what's good,
Yeah, it's hard to argue against the stats, Some people make their tier lists off of vibes, but this is going off statistics. Good old statistics.
Yeah. One thing I think you can kind of argue the statistics in like, because statistics, I've said this on like my stream many times, it's just like it requires context. So it's like, is something good? Why is it looking good here? And like, is it actually good, or is it just like, is something bringing down the numbers for one deck? So you have to really look at that third column there, popularity. So a lot of times decks that are more popular are really lower in stats than what they would generally be, because so many people are playing it. All the like maybe not as good players are maybe bringing down the stats of like what the top deck would be for that. So you have to kind of keep an eye out for those decks.
Should we just run through the top 5 real quick, maybe?
Yeah, let's do it.
The top deck, well, first of all, I'm filtering this by latest patch, ranks 70 through 99. I'm not counting 100 plus because I feel like some people can kind of abuse bots. Some decks do really well against bots, and we don't want to count those just yet. So number 1 deck, surprise, it's Shuri.
Yeah, no surprise there. Shuri was the only deck in the S tier list that didn't really get hit hard by nerfs, right? Like Thanos got nuked kind of, I guess, nuked in that sense that it really took a big hit in win rate and cube rate. But Shuri, not so much. I think, this is expected to be at the top. I think it's the one deck that really stands out, like much more than any other deck right now. Yeah.
I mean, if you have Shuri, you win games. This list in particular has Captain Marvel. I think, do you put Captain Marvel in your Shuri decks?
I don't put Captain Marvel. So I actually put Vision, which is a bigger card that does a very similar thing. I do think, I was talking about this also before, but I think Vision and Captain Marvel, very, very similar roles, but I think Captain Marvel is better for players that want to think less and just get the game done, it's just like, and be like, oh, this will just win for me a lot of times. So I think it'd be better for the general player base because it's just like, it's much less mind gamey and much less whatever. It's just like you either win or you don't a lot of times.
Thinking is hard sometimes, I do think, Captain Marvel does the hard legwork for you, so you don't have to move with your vision. But another thing I noticed, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, is getting Shang-Chi. If you Shuri into Captain Marvel, it's relatively easy to Shang the Captain Marvel. But if you're moving a vision around, it might be a little bit harder for your opponent to actually Shang the Captain Marvel.
So I've actually heard the other argument the other way around, which I agree with you, first of all. I agree. But I've heard some other people be like, oh, with Captain Marvel, I could always just put Captain Marvel behind Armor or Cosmo, and now I have to worry about Shang. And then at the end of the game, after they've played out all their cards, like they can't just like Shang my empty lane, being like my lane without armor and Cosmo, and know that I'm going to play something into it. They have to like Captain Marvel will just go there after the game is over. With Vision, like you might have to move it into that lane and then get Captain Marvel maybe. But like you have 3 lanes with Captain Marvel, right? So or not with Captain Marvel, with Vision. So it's like if you have 3 lanes, they have to guess where you're gonna play or move that Vision to. So it's just like most people are too, I guess, like nervous about where you're gonna move it, and they're not gonna guess. They're just gonna play a different play than Shang-Chi most of the time. So I like Vision. It's bigger. It gets the job done better, I think, than Captain Marvel. It is a little bit susceptible if you have to move it into an unprotected lane.
Yeah.
But it's a 50-50 at best most of the time, like for the opponent, you know. Like I don't think they make that play most of the time.
Do you still run Arrow in this deck as well?
I don't. I cut Arrow from my deck just because it's just not as good. My current deck, I don't think it runs Arrow. I do run Arrow. I lied.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
feel like Armor and Cosmo are kind of what makes this deck so frustrating to play against because, yeah, you have a big thing. Yeah, it's Shangable, but it's not Shangable if it's behind a Cosmo or behind an Armor. Then you end up just task mastering your other lane. So, like, one of your lines might be Armor or Cosmo into Shuri. Of course, don't put Shuri behind the Cosmo. And then you play, like, your Captain Marvel or your Red Skull. Generally, it's going to be Red Skull. Behind the Armor or Cosmo, and then you do a Taskmaster in a different lane. Your opponent can't really, deal with the Red Skull, and then you have all of a sudden 26 plus power in multiple lanes, and you just lose. So
Yeah, that seems to be what the developers think as well. Is like they seem to think that Red Skull is the problem with Shuri, and that's what they try to nerf a bit, like bringing the power down slightly, right? This last patch bringing it from 15 to 13 power, but obviously that wasn't enough because Shuri's still just problematic because they did a like kind of side change to Red Skull, right? They made it from +2 ongoing to +1. It definitely wasn't enough. I personally don't think Red Skull is the problem with Shuri, but I think you can nerf Red Skull all you want. You can remove Red Skull from a Shuri deck, and I still think it's going to be busted. I think there's just like too many cards that like. There's a couple of decks that just run like Atuma and some other stuff, like and Mary and like some other things that are just like they're still just big cards that you're playing out with Shuri that are still big. And it's a very like straightforward play style where you play Shuri on 4, you play big card on 5, you play Taskmaster on 6. It's just like there's not much thought process to a lot of that, I feel like. So it's just like whenever you have a straightforward game plan, it's going to be a high performing deck if it has like good stuff you're playing out for that game plan.
Yeah, I think this deck personally is kind of boring because you just Shuri, Red Skull, Taskmaster, you win. Kind of boring.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Yep.
All right, let's move on. I think everyone knows a lot about Shuri, but Sarah Control is the second best deck. And these are sorted not by win rate, but average cube win rate, which is more important in this game than your actual win rate.
I would actually say it really depends. So I personally think that the win rate of the deck more speaks to how good the deck is, but it speaks to like why it's good with the cube rate. So it's like a lot of times, like if you have a deck that has a low win rate but high cube rate, a lot of that means that like you're able to subvert the expectations of your opponent more often than not, or you have an easy to understand like should I be snapping or retreating kind of play style. But it doesn't actually speak to the strength of the deck as much, like on an overall scale, unless you look at the win rate, because like a deck like Galactus, right? So you can't really bring Galactus to like a tournament or something very easily because the win rate is so low, and your opponents, if they know that you're playing Galactus or if they figure that out, it's like you can keep that win rate and cube rate low because it's no longer subverting expectations. Right?
Yeah, I really do feel like battle mode and ladder are very, very different because if your opponent knows what you're up to, it's very easy to play around. I feel like games like Galactus, you just get a cheeky win in there or something. But if you're, playing 10 health or 10 cubes, whatever they call it, It's
Yep.
really easy to play around. So you gotta keep that in mind when bringing a tournament deck, and we'll talk about a tournament later, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, we will. But yeah, Sarah Control here. I think this, like Sarah, like they call it Sarah Control, but it's really just like Sarah Hawk is the new Sarah. And I think it is like it's technically Zabu Hawk also. Like the Sarah Control was the old name we used to give it back in the day when it was like Sarah Shanchi, like maybe even like Enchantress Killmonger
Enchantress, yeah.
was like the main thing. But it's just like now I don't think you can really call this deck even Sarah Control anymore because it's like Sarah, Shang-Chi, Killmonger, like the three kind of control-ish like cards. Arrow. I don't think you put Arrow in this deck anymore either. So it's just like it's really Zabu Hawk is like this big meta defining deck, and also in the tournament, it might be something that I might have kind of brought a little bit of, but with my own twist.
Yeah. I think all these lists, like this one and the Shuri one that we're showing from Untapped, they're just going off the most popular deck, not necessarily like the best current iteration, just the one that has the most games under its belt.
Yep. Yeah,
But
a lot of these most popular decks, I looked at them, what they were and stuff. It looks like they're mainly like ones that just got popular. Like a streamer posted a list, and a lot of people are just playing that exact list because, yeah, that's just generally how it works. Like if you have the most popular 12 cards in a deck, it's gonna have to be like popular for some reason.
Yeah. But I think Sarah Control's in a really good spot right now. Mostly, I feel like because of Shuri. The fact that you have Shang-Chi and he's so easily played is really good. Discounted with the Zabu, discounted with the Sarah on top of that. All of a sudden, Shang-Chi is just 2, and you can just destroy, their Red Skull if it's not behind an armor or a Cosmo, or maybe you can snipe their Taskmaster if they do have priority. And I think Arrow's not terrible against Shuri, because if they are going Taskmaster, you could just pull it to a lane they maybe don't want it in.
So against the Taskmaster, I would say my ideal play with this deck is like you actually Arrow on 5 if you're going to be playing Arrow to pull the Red Skull or the big card that they play on turn 5 away from their protection, and then you can Shang-Chi it on the last turn. That's like a better play most of the time because Taskmaster, they can play that with a 1-drop, and with the Arrow nerfs, that means that they could order that so that you only pull the 1-drop.
Yeah. That seems like the way to go. It seems like a really good line. But yeah, I always like Sarah Control decks. I feel like you can slightly alter them and they still kind of have the integrity of a Sarah deck. I just enjoy that last turn vomit is always fun. I don't know why. Maybe it's not healthy for the game, but I enjoy it. Like there's the toxic build where you're running Luke and Hazmat and maybe like Absorbing Man or something like that. They're a lot of fun.
They are a lot of fun. Yeah. And I recently just put in Dr. Doom into like one of my Sarah decks just because the new meta has, I think, this huge potential to shift. I think you'll see it. I don't know if it's actually on this list, but Doom Wave is like a big thing that's coming out. Like it's got She-Hulk. It is down here. So Doom Wave, this deck I think is on the rise. I think this She-Hulk Wave combo in the new meta is going to be a pretty big thing, and just having a card to play out with the wave. So if you're able to get Sarah down to turn 5, if you have some 6-cost cards in your Sarah deck and someone waves you, like you're not the one waving, but you can play 2 cards, any 2 cards you want with Sarah. So it's just like you can play Doom and another card, which is just like really big. So I started throwing in like 1 6-cost into my Sarah decks just for that reason. And Doom, huge with wave because it puts like 3 units right across each location.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the Doom Wave stuff. A lot of people were doing like Death Wave or Arrow and Wave She-Hulk stuff. Doom he's a big spread of power, and it's just hard to read. And I love Doom. All right, so the third best deck is Discard, actually, according to this Untapped tier list, with a MODOK. This is exciting.
This is surprising.
Yeah, I have felt like MODOK is better than people give him credit for, and not that many people are messing around with MODOK. But what do you think about this? Do you see this a lot when you're on ladder?
I see it occasionally, which is more than some other decks. It's like it shows up every once in a while. There's a person running it. I do see the power potential with it a lot of times, but it usually comes down to like last turn Apocalypse. Like can they play it into a lane that wins it out? Because it's just like Like they usually have a big Morbius. They play the MODOK down. They have the Dracula. Like, are they going to Apocalypse with the Dracula? Are they going to play it out? It's like, it does feel like a lot of power. I do think it is a strong deck. I don't know if I would call it the third best deck though.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I didn't expect to see this one up here. I do think, again, that MODOK is a bit underrated, but I don't know if he's top 3 underrated. I was thinking more like maybe like a top 8 deck. So this is very interesting to see. The stats on Untapped kind of back it up, but maybe take it with a grain of salt. But if you do have MODOK, don't forget about discard.
I will say, if you probably sorted by including infinite level players, I think MODOK would drop, but that's also just like the meta's a little bit different in infinite, right? Like there's, like you said, like bots that some top players are playing against, and also people are just experimenting more. Like Shuri's a lower percent, not because it's not good, it's just because people don't care about cubes as much, so they're just trying new things.
And you do have to keep in mind people are playing like in their own pocket meta, like something that does well at infinite might be different than what you're doing at rank 40, rank 50. So discard might be good where you're at and terrible in infinite.
Speaking of discard real fast, I think one thing that I've recently been playing with a lot that I think not a lot of people have that is actually pretty good is Stature. And if discard ever becomes popular, Stature just gets better because you don't have to play your own discard cards to discard your opponent's hand to be able to play Stature out. So that's something to look out for.
The Stature Moon Girl Black Bolt Shuri decks where you just vomit out a couple Statures, maybe a couple She-Hulks on the final turn. Is that what you're kind of referring to?
I actually haven't been playing one with Moon Girl. I've been playing one with Wave. So Stature, if you don't know, keeps the discount with Wave. So you can play it out with Wave. So I was actually playing a Kitty Pryde Stature Wave deck that was trying to just dump out. Like you could play Kitty Pryde Stature and another card with Wave.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's exhilarating.
Very fun.
It sounds like more fun than a Shuri deck, I'll tell you what.
It does. And it's actually pretty strong, I think. So, like, it's not, it can't compete with Shuri on the same exact power level, but I think they are going to tweak something soon with Shuri. So, that'll come down.
Yeah. They have to. All right. So, the fourth best deck, according to this list, is She-Not. And, I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this, but I'm surprised to see this up here. But at the same time, this was on my my docket of different decks to try again, because I feel like with Arrow being nerfed to only pull one card, this deck might be a little bit better. In the past, it kind of just lost to an Arrow. Like it's very telegraphy. Yeah. Your opponent knows what you're doing. They just arrow you, you lose. Or you can't even get the magic off because they're going to Reality Stone. But Thanos decks have taken a bit of a backseat. There's less Reality Stone. So maybe your Limbo doesn't get wrecked. And the whole concept behind this deck is that I guess you float and then you She-Hulk Infinite. And you get multiple copies of She-Hulk through your Moon Girl. And floating is good because you have Sunspot, and then it's just hard for your opponent to deal with that much vomit on the final turn. It's a lot of power.
Yeah, I think that this is like a very fun, cool deck to play. But like you said, it's very telegraphed. And also like this specific deck we're looking at, it has Quinjet in it and a bunch of 1-drops. Quinjet got nerfed, so if you're Moon Girling some 1-drops, you no longer can play those for free with Quinjet. So it's like there's some considerations. Maybe you have to tweak this a little bit, but I do think this deck is up in the data more like higher than it should be. Like if you look at the win rate, it's 50%. You look at the popularity, it's 1.3. Things with lower popularity generally have an extra boost. The cube rate being above the win rate here, I think that kind of shows that like people might be not expecting it as much because like you play Magic, maybe they're like, oh, they skipped a turn. Oh, look, I maybe can win. I have like a lot more power than them. And then you drop Infinite, She-Hulk. So like if this were to become more popular, people would be playing around it more. The cube rate would drop. I don't think that this deck is going to be a top like 5 meta deck. I think it's one of those ones it's subverting expectations now. It's like kind of surprising a little bit. Like, but as people realize that it's telegraphed, like I looked at this data pretty deeply, and it's only good and popular in the lower player rate, like lower being like not Infinite Plus. When you look at Infinite Plus, this completely drops out of the meta. So I think it's something that like it's fun, might be good for climbing right now. Watch out for it if it ever tries to gain popularity, because if people know that it's coming, they really know it's coming, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as well. That I think this is good at lower ranks. Also, probably really good against bots. But in Infinite Plus, people definitely see it coming a mile away. So, and also this version that they're showcasing on Untapped it's not it.
Yeah, it's not it.
This ain't it. But yeah, okay. Let's move on to the 5th deck they're showing here, which is a Darkhawk deck.
Yeah, so this is very similar to the Sarah Control deck. They're running the Dino Hawk list. This is very similar to what I brought to the tournament. I brought a deck that's kind of this, but instead of Dino, I'm going Ronin Master Mold, and I think this list is one of the best lists, like this kind of list. I think this is top 3 in my opinion decks right now, like this kind of list.
Yeah, this is really strong. I'm surprised not more people are playing Darkhawk. Actually, yesterday I saw just a ton of Darkhawk decks. It was
I was
endless.
about to say, like, you're saying not a lot of people. I've seen this everywhere. I feel like this is a very popular deck right now, and the data doesn't show it's like that popular. It's 3.7% here, but it's just like, I think if you put an infinite filter on, I think this deck rises in popularity.
Let me throw that on and see the difference here. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it went down actually in popularity. Down in
popularity,
but up in the ranking here.
Do you see that 3rd deck is Dracula Dump? I love Dracula Dump. Sorry,
I haven't played that recently, but yeah, that also is a low play rate, kind of like, but also like pretty good win rate, pretty good keep rate. So Dracula Dump, you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, don't talk shit on my Dracula Dump. But yeah, I think Darkhawk is very, very good. I think it's one of the better decks as it surges in popularity. I think people will see how good it is. With Shuri getting possibly nerfed or touched somehow, because everyone's complaining about it, I think this might get even better, right?
So one of the things about this deck is it can be bigger than Shuri a lot of times, since you have the Mystique, the Darkhawk. So if you end up putting any of your 2 big cards in one lane, that is bigger than Shuri. And Shuri can only really stack a lot of power in 2 lanes. So if you can stack enough power in one of those 2 lanes that's just bigger, a lot of times you'll win out that 3rd lane as well. So it's just like, this deck can compete in power against a Shuri deck. That's what's so crazy. Plus you run Shang-Chi in it. So it's just like, you have that other option as well.
I think Dinosaur is a big card that people often forget about just because he's a pull 2 card or whatever, but he's always good.
You know, or Ronin. Ronin, anybody?
Oh, well.
Master
right. Moving on. I mean, that was the top 5, right? But I do want to touch. Yeah. I want to touch Dracula Dump a little bit. I love this deck. I don't know why. I can't stop playing it and playing different versions on it. I think I've made like 5 videos on this in 1 month, just because
maybe that's why it's popular right now.
Honestly, I think so. Yeah. I think this got even better with the Red Skull buff or nerf.
Really? I would think it would get slightly worse because the Dracula Red Skull is slightly worse, right?
You just lose 2 power off it, but often you're just playing the Red Skull out instead.
I got you.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, if you're just playing the Red Skull out instead, I guess you have 0 in the deck, but it's just like, I was going to say, like, should we just be putting Red Skull into other decks just to play out? Because it's just like...
Yeah. He's a 5/9 at worst. That's pretty dang good. And then he has big upside. So, yeah, I do think Red Skull got better in just putting him in a sort of good cards shell.
You just put 0 Red Skull in any shell.
Yeah, I had a list I used to play a lot that I called No Shuri, No Problem. And this was basically, everyone was complaining about Shuri Red Skull. And I was like, what if I just take out Shuri and work the deck a little bit differently? And Red Skull was doing great in there. And I think that deck is probably even better now with the recent changes to Red Skull. But Dracula Dump, I did take this in a different direction recently that I like, where you drop the Khazar, you drop the Squirrel Girl, and you just put in Yellow Jacket and Scorpion. Just so it's almost like a good card deck.
Yeah. I love good card decks, as anyone would know, but Scorpion, I think, is one of the best. I recently made a top 10 card list, and Scorpion made my top 10 cards in the game, all out of all cards. So I think that's a pretty good inclusion. I think. I was about to say that this version that we're looking at here, it's more of the Dracula Zoo list we used to see. But I like what you were just saying. Drop Kazar, drop Squirrel Girl, put in good cards.
Yeah, and then being able to Yellow Jacket a 0/2. Some people think, Yellow Jacket's going to be a big downside, but he's not. You just play him in a lane before you play the other cards, but also it makes it so you can really target what Dracula is going to discard. So sometimes you just play Dracula on the final turn. Like your last turn might be Yellow Jacket, Dracula, I don't know, armor. Or Yellow Jacket, Dracula, Lizard, or something like that. And then your Dracula just discards your Infinite or something like that. Really, really fun deck, I think. I think it's better than people give it credit for. It does have a lot less popularity and play rates. But in my experience, a lot of people are telling me they're having great success, like first-time Infinite gamers and stuff like that. But I'm a bit biased towards it. I'm a bit biased towards it. But I think everyone has like their pet decks in a way.
Yeah, I definitely see the pet deck thing. Like this is something that I would expect. Like Raven loves the Dracula Ghost Rider kind of stuff. I feel like Dracula, I think, is one of the slept on cards though. So I think that this is could be seeing a surge soon, especially if Shuri gets nerfed. Yeah,
I agree with that. So we're going to talk real quickly about maybe different buffs or nerfs that we would like to see. I am personally a big fan of seeing buffs in card games. I think it's more fun to like revive an old card that maybe isn't seeing much action instead of just killing a card that people really love to play with, like Shuri. Although I feel like Shuri can get a bit of a nerf.
Leader, Leech, all those cards. Why would they kill anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. But like buffing old cards. So for example, Snap.fan has these statistics by the card where you can see the game scene. So I think a great example here is Crystal and maybe Strong Guy. Both of these cards are just they're dead. No one plays them anymore. And why not? Why not give these a little bit of a buff? Crystal. How would you change Crystal, actually? What do you think, Dera?
I would do two things to Crystal. I would buff her power. I would make her like a 4/5, 4/6. And then, this might be controversial, but I would revert the change and make it so you could play her into any lane again. Or at least two lanes. It's just like, the fact that you have to play her only mid for the shuffle to happen, I think that is too limiting for the card. Because if you're putting this into a deck on purpose, you want that effect to go off like most of the time when you play Crystal. I feel like this change was kind of made in like that thought process of, if you didn't know, it used to just be any lane you could play it into, and then it's the middle lane now. But they made it because they wanted you to be able to tempo the card out without basically throwing away your hand if you don't want to. But it's like, if you randomly generated Crystal, sure, maybe you might want to tempo it out because that's your only play. But I feel like it's rare that you want to play just a 4/4 on turn 4. So, and if you are, you're probably losing anyway. So it's like, why make that change? Just let her do her ability and make her a little bit more than a 4/4,
Yeah, I feel like normally these 4-cost cards have more stats than Crystal would, unless, like their condition was like hard to meet or something, like Warpath.
Yep.
What he's a 4/5 with a relatively hard to meet condition where you have to leave one lane empty. So he becomes a 4/9. So I guess they're seeing Crystal's on reveal as a huge upside, which it's not really like
so
that.
They've talked about this a little bit, and they've said they don't want card draw to really be that popular or that good. So it's just like, this is a card that technically could draw you 3 cards. And that's just like, to them, something they want to really watch out for. Because since you're already drawing 75% of your deck every single game, if you draw those last 3 cards every single game, that's your entire deck, right? So they want to really limit you from being able to get your entire deck every single game.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say,
they can't buff it too much.
Yeah, I've noticed coming from like other card games, mostly Hearthstone, almost every card game, card draw is just busted. Card draw is so good. Like Adam Warlock is one of the only cards that draws, right? Jubilee kind of draws in a sense.
Kind of, yeah.
But with having such a small deck, card draw becomes even better because consistency is key. That's what they say. Consistency is key, So,
it's king. Yeah.
Yeah, so like drawing an extra card, you're already drawing 75% of your deck. So drawing, even a further card is kind of insane. When you have a 30 or a 40 card deck, like in Hearthstone, the card is still good. So imagine how good it is with a 12 card deck. So yeah, I could see them being scared about Crystal getting busted, but she's garbage.
She's awful. She was
awful.
like the only 4-drop in the entire game that when the Zaba meta hit, she still wasn't played. Like, people still wouldn't play it. Like, every other 4-drop in the entire game, I literally looked through the entire list, started to be played with Zabu, except for Crystal.
Yeah.
That's how bad she was.
Yeah, so Crystal's bad. Another bad card we have is Orca.
I tried to make this card work.
Dude, I got Orca, I think like the day it came out, I opened him from a cache, and I was kind of excited. And then I started playing with him for like 2 hours, and I think I won like one game that Orca was actually a part of. And it was just because my opponent messed up and did really bad. But he's 6'9", but he's a 6'14", so he's like a Giganto with the worst upside.
He's like smaller than a Dino, and a Dino's like a 5-cost card, It's
and then they also just buffed Namor, right? So Namor's a 5'11" or 4'11".
Yeah, you get +3 for 2 more energy with Orca, and it's like, it's so rare that you have like a fully empty lane that you can place into, and like nothing goes wrong, and you can keep it empty, and Orca is gonna win. So it's just like, it's just really hard for this to ever work. Like, most of the time when I played this card, I was playing it for a 6'9". It's just like, oh, it's a Chavez, but without the benefits of Chavez. So it's just like, I don't want it.
The only time I'm playing this guy is when he's off a raft, and that's pretty much it. He is awful. I would like to see a change. I feel like maybe
6'18".
Well, that's a little much. Though. A 6'16", maybe. I feel like
I think you could add +9 to the ongoing, and he would be like played, but like not even like completely busted. But maybe a little bit busted, but maybe not 6'18", but like 6'16", it could be.
I think 16, doable. So he kind of beats out Destroyer a little bit. I think that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. But as it is, he definitely needs to be addressed because he's a fun card, but he's garbage.
No, yeah, I like the like play style of like play the one card there, and that's like the mind games that you have to play. Like, will I play another card there to like remove my ongoing? Like, I like that kind of mind game in the game. So it's like, I wish it was good, but it's just like, it's not.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. Strong Guy, a card I used to love. Well, I still love him, but he's just trash. I think a lot of people
used to love it.
Yeah.
It was a cool archetype. I've actually seen on ladder a few people try Strong Guy stuff, but I still think it's just obviously not working for the most part. They could definitely buff it. They nerfed it. It used to be a 2-cost card, and now it's not. Yeah, if you didn't know, it used to be a 2/8 with the full ongoing. So
it's like
still
a Mojo.
Very powerful.
Okay,
like a Mojo, but much easier to set off than Mojo.
I feel like you can at least give like 1 power to this guy and see if it changes anything. I mean, Namor is a 4/11 and no one plays him. So if Strong Guy was a 4/11 with the full effect, I feel like that'd be a step in the right direction. I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Yeah, or make him like a 3/3, and that might be a cool
like
thing
that.
as well.
Yeah, then he's buffed by Silver Surfer.
Oh yeah, that Silver Surfer I think is having a comeback. I know we didn't talk about it during the tier list.
Yeah, like a Sarah Surfer.
Yeah.
Another card. Let's not talk about this guy later.
I think Leader could use a slight like. Not to put him back at like the S tier level.
I think you're the number one Leader fan in the world. I feel
I disagree, but yeah, I'm the most known Leader player in the Leader world. But it's like, I think Leader could just be something that you could tech. Like, I want it to be a tech card. I don't want it to be like a slot into any deck card. Like if they made it so like copies adjacent cards. So if you played it in the middle, it would copy both sides. If you played it on left or right, it still copies just one way, So it's like, and they just said that, like, that's a small nudge, and it might just become playable. Like, a lot of people spent tokens on Leader when it was out because it was good, and they like now can't play it at all,
if you look at his cube rate and stuff like that, also it's just negative. His win rate is negative. I do think the card could, I think he got destroyed. He got nerfed into oblivion, and it kind of felt a bit rushed to me.
I think it was fine at the time though, because it's like everyone was hating on Leader. I even too was like, let's make it so that people stop talking about how annoying Leader is, and just like it did shut down that conversation. But you know, like,
but now
it
he's
could have went more of the
unplayable.
way with Arrow, which was like I think a really good change. I really liked the Arrow change so far because it made Arrow like not slottable into every single deck, but still very playable.
Yeah, I feel like if Leader, just copied like the next card your opponent played or whatever, or the first card they played that turn or whatever.
Yeah, they could definitely make a lot of changes to make it playable again.
Yeah, I hate to see cards just be unplayable. I know it's going to happen. Some cards are going to be like that, but I mean, even stuff like Sentry or Drax, they did recently buff Drax, but still sees no action.
None.
Yeah, he should at least be a 4/9, I reckon. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
You could just keep going down this list and say that for almost every card, like Groot, Medusa, Punisher. There's just like no reason to play these cards. Watu. So power creep already starting to feel like a thing to me. Yeah, Shadow King. Yeah. Shadow King, the big one. But I feel like Shadow King, once everyone, starts doing the bishop stuff, the
I
hit monkey
still don't
stuff,
think it'll be played. It's too expensive. You'd rather just put Shang-Chi in your deck still. Like
make
like
it a 3/3. I wonder if when they made Shadow King, they were thinking he'd be played with Zabu. Didn't he come out that month?
He did come out that month. If you look at the original design, he was like a 6 cost that had a different ability. So I don't really know like how late into the cycle this got changed to be like a 4, like doing this. I just don't think it was like thought out enough that it would like it became a playable card. Like it should just like I could see this being an ability on a 2 cost card. Like and it's 4. It's a 4 cost card.
Yeah. Okay, so there was recently a tournament that Dera partook in. He was in the tournament.
Dera partook? Yeah, twice. I was in there twice.
Twice.
yeah.
You played yourself in the first round. I do want to say real quick, I lost. I did quite bad in this tournament. I blame RNG, but also I lost to the winner.
That is true. You just happened to play against the winner in the first round, which kind of sucks,
Yeah, but I think I kind of expected it. I knew you were going to win the whole thing because you're just a champion.
I am a champion, multiple time champion. I still hold the title for another champion. I don't know if you know which champion I'm talking about here.
We don't gotta talk about it. Let's move on.
All right, we don't talk about Cerebro. All right. Yeah, I think this tournament you went out. I don't think you really like have anything to like explain about it. Like it's like you faced me in the first round, and I feel like you didn't like do what some people did and brought like Shuri Thanos. Like you brought decks that were fun, like not necessarily fun, but like still good, but like it more interesting than just Shuri Thanos. Like
I didn't try hard. I also did not prepare at all for this tournament, and the timing of it on the back end was very chaotic, I would say. They kind of just told people, like, just schedule your own matches on your own time, and then you're playing with all these people from different time zones. So like sometimes I wasn't ready for it, and then I had to film at 9 p.m. or whatever after doing a long stream and editing. So it was very chaotic, and because of that, I put minimal effort. I could tell you put a lot of thought into this.
It may look like that, but yeah, I put a lot of thought into like maybe the first round of deck submissions. I know not everyone made it to the second round, but the first round of deck submissions, I was like, oh yeah, what am I going to do? By a lot of thought, I actually did it live on stream. So it was like an hour of thought live on stream, and I just went through all the decks. And it was actually less thought than like I would probably do if there was like real money on the line. Like it was still like they had like I don't know what the total prize pool was. It like 1,500 or 3,000. I think first place was like $870.
Oh my gosh!
But it's like it was still like if it was like a big money tournament, I might be like super try hard kind of thing, where this I was just like, okay, what are the best decks right now? What do I want to bring? Do I want to try hard really hard? I did bring Shuri and Thanos, but I didn't get to play Thanos because we had to switch decks before that. But I do
you didn't lose, so you couldn't.
Yeah. With the scheduling again, I do think I am not a huge fan of kind of being like they were trying to, I think, be accommodating and be like, yeah, you guys can like take however time you want, do it on your own schedule, so you don't have to like be forced to be there at that time. But I think that leads to more chaos and more problems with timing altogether, because like when it's disorganized like that, like coordinating with one other person like multiple times, like multiple people, it just like causes scheduling nightmares, and just like it really doesn't make it less like stressful to like find a time. It makes it more, because you have to actually like set it up and whatever. It's just, they should set a time for tournaments and be like, okay, we're going to play these round matches at this time, and like just force everyone to be there at those times.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I think this could have taken time, or taken place over 2 days maybe. They just were like, okay, block out these 2 hours, because it was a best of one. The games were fast. I think I lost. My total gameplay was probably less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, even my total gameplay for being the winner of the tournament was probably like, I don't know, like 2 hours tops. You know, it's like, it was not a lot. It was just like, there's not a lot of gameplay that has to occur in best of ones, right?
Yeah, so you guys probably haven't seen this. It is on YouTube though. If you want to watch, you can search.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it,
Infinity Gauntlet, 983 Infinity Gauntlet, or something like that.
983 Media, I think, is their YouTube, and then the Infinity Gauntlet is the series. They have other series on their YouTube page that are not Marvel Snap, but it's I think, but outside of like the scheduling, I do think the tournament, for me at least, was a lot of fun. I think playing battle mode matches in a kind of competitive environment is a pretty fun thing to do. My one take is like the format of just like open deck list, double elimination. I think it does lead to a sort of meta within each match, where you would see this if you watch my Freddy Babes game. If you have very different decks, you will see the locations pop up, and you know which person has the better deck for that location, and you will just, one person will snap, one person will retreat. And it's just like a lot of the games comes down to like just location RNG, and you're just like, okay, this is their game, this is my game, and you don't get to play out a lot of those games sometimes.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of problem with like an open deck list, like best of one format.
Yeah, but Dera won. He's a hero.
I did.
Yeah.
I was a little bit worried at a few times. I did drop down to the lower bracket, but winning out after switching decks, I think, was another thing that was like a bit controversial. Like, have you ever heard of this in a tournament where mid-tournament you swap out your like deck that you're supposed to have for the full tournament?
No.
After, when we got to top 6, we resubmitted new decks.
Because there was a patch, right? Because the tournament took so long. There was a patch.
Yeah. So it did take a long time, but we actually had like a week of time where they said, don't play matches. We want to basically not be playing on this old patch for the finals, because by the time the finals are going live, the patch will have hit and it'll be like old gameplay. We want to just like make it fresh, which is like uncommon, I feel like, for tournaments to do that sort of like, we want to like, for the content, we want to make it fresh. You know, it's like a lot of times they will have like the competitive integrity above like the content, where they want to be like, this is what we said it would be at the beginning. We want to play it all the way through and have the winner be the winner, you know? Yeah, I will say I had a lot of fun. It was really great to play against a lot of these top creators in the card game scene. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I won. But
okay, so real quick, I wanted to jump over some of the responses that the dev team gives to people who ask them questions in the Discord. I think this is really nice. They don't have to do this, but the communication from Second Dinner is quite commendable. So if you go to this, if you go to this Twitter page, Marvel Snap News or Marvel Snap Bugle, whatever you want to call it, Braude, he takes screenshots of some of the really interesting stuff, and you can just keep track of it there instead of having to go to their Discord. So this first one we want to talk about is basically someone asked if they're going to balance weak or less used cards, because it feels bad to just not see those cards be played. Probably kind of like the ones we talked about previously, like Strong Guy and whatnot. And basically the answer is yes.
They've talked about they talked about this in the past a little bit. The answer is yes, but So Glenn made a tweet a little bit ago where he was basically responding to a similar question about like buffing cards. And he said, in the future, we're coming up with new systems to be able to buff cards. So it sounds like there's, I don't know if he used the word systems, but he just like, it basically sounded like they have this like systematic plan to buff cards in the future where it's going to be like maybe scheduled or like something like that. So it does sound like there is a buff thing coming that's going to be like more frequent buffs or like some sort of way around that. They've kind of alluded to this future of buffs that's coming.
Yeah. I think there's another one where they talk about like the cadence of buffs, like how often they want them. I don't know if we have that here, but let's move on to the next one here. Talking about a Cosmo counter.
Yeah, so basically they're saying, are there any cards to interact with Cosmo? And they said they have designed a couple in the future that actually uniquely affect Cosmo. But if you, I also think like Negasonic is a card that kind of interacts with Cosmo in a way that's different than some of the other cards because you can still destroy cards under Cosmo with Negasonic. But yeah, now there's more coming, they're saying.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I wonder how this is gonna work.
I have no idea how to interact with COD. Like it might be like removing ongoing from other lanes, disabling stuff from other lanes. Because it's like maybe an not unreveal card that disables things.
Yeah, like it'd have to be I don't know, maybe like it disables ongoing for the next turn or something like that. I'm not sure.
It just could be a card on the board ongoing. Everything in this lane like loses its things. Like it doesn't have to be an on reveal like Enchantress. It could be an ongoing sort of Enchantress type card or something like that.
This next one is talking about Sunspot usage rate. Sunspot, is he the most played card? I think he actually might be.
According to Snapped Out Fan, he is, yeah. He is the highest played card. He's one of the most flexible cards. He's the 1/1 drop that you can put into almost any deck because you could just, anytime you're floating mana, floating energy, it's just
yeah, he's one of the cards you can put in almost any deck, and it just feels like a natural fit.
Yep. They say it's higher than they want, so I've been asking for a Sunspot nerf, but a lot of people, they're in the boat of like, why nerf good cards? Let's buff bad cards. But I think Sunspot is one of those cards that like, it's a little bit too flexible in my mind.
It's a little too good. Maybe even just making him a 1/0. I don't know.
That's what I say. Yeah, 1/0. Yeah. Like it's hard to like tweak the cards that are so low on the power and energy scale because it's like going from 1/0 to 1 or 1/1 to 1/0. Like that is a significant power nerf. But Sunspot's deceptively a 1/1. Like it's really like a 1/6 a lot of times. So it's just like bring it down by 1 is fine.
All right, this one is talking about spectator mode. And in other card games, I know at least in Hearthstone, there's a spectator mode where you can just spectate your friends and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, I know Hearthstone had kind of a scuffed spectator mode, and it kind of still is a little bit like with the hand and whatever for the opponent. But like ideally, you want a really fleshed out spectator mode to make esports thrive, right? So they've said this is something they want, but as you could see, or as maybe it says, it's not on their priority list right now. So they're not actively working on it, it sounds like.
I feel like there's a lot of things on their list, and yeah, this is just taking a back seat. I mean, I'd rather have the widescreen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a big deal. But spectator mode eventually would be great. Yeah, as you said, for esports, I think esports it's really healthy to have an esports scene for your game.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely something that's not at the top of their list. Kind of interesting here.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say there are definitely some other things I would want first, like ranked leaderboard, like infinite changes, But these are different people working on different things, so it's like they could push some people to be working on some things, but it is just a whole priority game, right? Like they don't have a very large team over there at Second Dinner, so you just have to wait a lot of times for these things.
All right, so this last one is talking about bundles. This isn't really too big of a deal, but I thought it was interesting. When you're buying those mystery bundles, they're so fun, but sometimes you just get like a pixel, right? But here,
sometimes you mean most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah, and then you're a little bit disappointed or whatever. But I have been seeing some pixels that I do like, which is.
I was about to say, like, if we're talking about pixels, I feel like you might be the one person that doesn't mind a pixel here and there.
Well, once you get them all, you can't get them anymore. Is one philosophy I do have. But as we could see here, Steven is saying they're planning on making like targeted ones, like maybe like a Venomized bundle where you might get one of the Venomized variants, or a Dan Hip mystery. Yeah, that's really cool. I think.
Yeah, knowing like Archer mystery, Dan Hip mystery, like I would definitely be more inclined to purchase something that I know I have a good chance of getting something that I want. Yeah. Like even if they did like a mystery, like one of the 1200 cost variants, but not 1200 cost, right? Like if they did like a discount bundle for one of those and it's just like a mystery one, I think that'd be cool.
A super rare mystery or something like that.
Yeah. Or an ultimate variant mystery,
Oh.
I really don't want to pay 5,000 tokens for ultimate variant, but they're all so cool. It's just like, it's $150 basically for a variant. It's like, I can't justify that.
What if it was a mystery ultimate for 3,000 tokens?
That's still $100. It's just
you end up getting.
I'm not spending $100 on a variant. I'm not that big of a whale, and I was the biggest whale in the beta. Like literally, I think I was the first person to get a full collection in Marvel Snap. So it's just like from a collection standpoint, I wasn't the biggest whale in the sense of variants, but I will say I've spent a lot of money on this game.
Do you have a full collection now?
I do. I currently still have a full collection. By still, I mean, I only recently had a full collection, and it was when I decided to get Kitty Pryde. I ran out of tokens, and I wasn't going to pick up Kitty Pryde, but FOMO got me, and I spent like $200 to get Kitty Pryde, which feels bad, I feel like. I didn't like doing it, I will say, but Kitty Pryde is fun.
Yeah. Maybe in the next podcast, we can talk about how much we've spent.
Yes, yeah.
Because I have spent a lot of money.
Do you think you've spent more or less than me?
More.
You've probably bought a lot more variants, but you have a smaller collection than me by a decent amount, I feel like.
Well, I just started playing this game, I barely played.
Oh, wait, did you? Oh, you weren't part of the beta, were you?
No, they didn't let me in. I kept asking. Wow. I was DMing them and they would ignore me.
So really?
I was like,
who are you DMing?
I think just the main accounts, actually.
Oh, well, that's your problem.
Well, yeah. Well, it is what it is. Here I am now. I sworn to never play this game because they didn't sponsor me. And here I am.
I've never been sponsored either for this game, and I've seen a couple of people that play Snap get sponsored. And
I did get sponsored.
Oh, okay. So you're one of the people. Yeah, I mean, you're part of it.
I made content for I made content for 4, 5, 6 months before I finally got a sponsorship. So thanks to them for that. I appreciate that.
I would have liked that, but I think they only reached out to like agencies to do those sponsorships. So if you happen to have a connection through an agency, you could get that sponsorship. But
it was, I think basically you had to have a decent sized YouTube.
Was it only YouTube, you think? Well,
I think the streamers,
small creators get sponsorships, like some smaller ones.
Yeah,
like,
I know streamers. I know streamers. It was different agencies. Streamers got it if they weren't Snap streamers or something like that. But if you were a YouTube content creator, you could. Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But okay, so I guess that's pretty much it for our first podcast, the Dekkster and Dera podcast. Thank you for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments, or this will be maybe on like Spotify and iTunes, or I don't know how to do that stuff, but I'm gonna try and figure it out. We'll do it. Yeah, your support would be much appreciated. I believe next week it'll be on Dera's YouTube channel.
The Dera and Dekks podcast, Dekkster and Dera, coming to a close. Yeah. Well, yeah, it'll be on my channel next week. What are we gonna talk about next week? Do we tease it? I don't.
No. They'll have to find out. They'll have to tune in and find out. It'll be an even better second episode. Absolutely. And then an even better third episode. This is rock bottom, baby. We're getting better from here.
This is the worst of the worst. And if you liked it, this will be, something to look forward to every week.